Thank you so much for coming here in the early morning. In this presentation, I'm going to present the results of one of my recent working paper that I worked under the supervision of my supervisor, Professor Richon Young, that's here. So in this study, I'm going to discuss about the economic value of socio-emotional skills or social and emotional skills, which is one of the recent types of skills that mostly being considered by the economists about the return to socio-emotional skills in the labor market. And the reason is because mostly the routine tasks can be done by robots or can be automated, but one of the important types of skills that can be a good competitive advantage for human being is the social and emotional skills, because machine cannot be as emotional and social as human being are. So that's why I'm discussing in this paper about the economic value of socio-emotional skills. So let's talk from the introduction and a little bit about the socio-emotional skills itself. When we are talking about the social or emotional skills, or in short, SEME skills, it's a kind of umbrella term. So we cannot point out just one specific skills, which this is the social emotional skills. It's an umbrella term that consider different types of personality or psychological constructs, such as personality traits, or we can call it Big Five inventory or Big Five personality traits: motivation, values, attitudes, and grit. And also in this study, one of the important social and emotional skills that we consider is the passions. So basically in this study, we consider the socio-emotional skills in terms of two very important personality traits. The first one, Big Five inventory, or BFI, which is open-mindedness, consciousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and emotional stability, and also non-Big Five passion trait, which is the willingness to sacrifice now for future benefit. And also there are some other related concepts for the social and emotional skill, which is character strength, non-cognitive skills, soft skills, 21st century skills, and something different. But all of them is a kind of umbrella term that show our psychological ability or somehow personality traits. But why socio-emotional skills is important? What is the motivation behind considering social emotional skills one of the hot topic about labor market? The first one, automation impact. As we know, most of the routine tasks can be automated. Even some of the cognitive-based tasks can be automated. So socio-emotional skills can be a key differentiator of human being with the machine. It can be a good competitive advantage that distinct the human capital from the machine that they can do. And the second thing, it have some outcome effect or independent of the cognition, independent of the cognitive skills. And even when we have socio-emotional skills, we can enhance the value of our cognitive skills. And the third one is the future ready. So why? Based on the report by the World Economic Forum that was published 2 months ago, some sort of socio-emotional skills such as resilience, flexibility, curiosity, logical reasoning, and collaboration, they're among the top 10 important skills now in 2025, and they're projected and predicted to be one of the top 10 most demanded skills by employer in 2030. So that's why if we want to be for the future, we need to know about the importance of socio-emotional skills, and we need to learn them, and we need to be ready in order to be in the competition. And the last thing is the life outcome linked to the education, income, employment, health, and life satisfaction and job satisfactions. So there are all the benefits of socio-emotional skills that we have. So that's why we need to study beyond that. There are some key research questions for our study. The first one is the economic value. How do socio-emotional skills affect wage across countries? And the second one, do SEME skills enhance value of cognitive skills, which we mostly focus about the complementarity between the two types of skills, cognitive skills and socio-emotional skills. And the third one is the variation. How do return to SEME skills differ by demographic and economic factors? And the last question that we are going to answer about the specific types of socio-emotional skills. As I said, socio-emotional skills as umbrella term. So each of them can measure a different part of our personality traits. That's why in the last question we are going to answer which types of socio-emotional skills can be most important and which of them can be least important or even can be like negatively impacted the labor market outcomes. So about the literature review, I'm going to tackle the literature review from three aspects. First, from the return to socio-emotional skills itself, which socio-emotional skills associated with a broad range of life outcomes such as educational achievement, income, employment success, health, and life and job satisfactions. But as I said, socio-emotional skills is an umbrella term. So each of these studies, they like consider or estimated or evaluated at different types of socio-emotional skills, or even a small measure of socio-emotional skills. So the next thing is about the skill complementarity. So there is a big questions about labor economics, whether to be specialized or to be generalized. So there is no exact answer about that, to be specialized or generalized, because some study, they say, okay, those people which they are specialized, they have an upper hand in the labor market. So they earn more than others. They can be like in a better occupations. But some other study, they say is generalization is much more better, because if you have different types of skills at the same time, you can have more opportunity to be hired. If you cannot hire in this job, you can be hired in another job. So you have more like flexibility for finding job in the labor market. And also there's another types of study, even to be generalized or specialized, it depends on which occupation we are working or which types of skill we can be generalized. Because there are some types of skill, even we have all of them, they cannot be important in the same job that we are doing. For example, when we're working as a designer, for designer, logo design and illustration work can be complemented. Both of them can be very valuable. But when we are like logo designer, logo designing does not have any like connection with some like language translation or Korean translation language, because they are completely different types of skills and cannot be combined together, because they can be needed for different types of occupation, but not in the same occupation for logo design. So that's why when we are talking about generalization or specialization, we need to know which types of skills we are talking about generalization. And the last one of the most important thing is nowadays, AI skills or artificial intelligence skills is strongly complemented workers' existing skills and raising in demand in recent years. It doesn't matter which types of skills we have. And for all of them, artificial intelligence skills or AI skills can be complemented. Either you are a logo designer, you are a language translator, or whatever you are, because we have different types of AI that can be like usable and adaptable for different types of skills, occupation. For language translator, you can use different types of AI. For logo design, you can use different types of AI. Like for being an IT specialist, you can use different AI. So each of them can be differently impacted by AI and can be complemented. And the next thing is the complementarity between non-cognitive and cognitive skills. Again, as I said, non-cognitive skills is an umbrella term. It can consider different types of or different parts of socio-emotional skills. And the very basic study that consider about the complementarity between a type of non-cognitive skills with social skills and cognitive skills is Deming 2017, which is a kind of foundation research in this area, which consider the complementarity between the social skills and cognitive skills in the US labor market. And after that, there's another study in 2018 that says employees who have high level of numeracy skills combined with some self-organization, effective management, and communication skills, which they are a kind of minor type of socio-emotional skills, can be preferred in the labor market. And a study in Poland by Plizniska find that positive return to cognitive skills is higher for non-neurotic individuals in Poland labor market. And finally, our study is very close to Deming 2017 in the US labor market, Erin et al. 2022, in the Sweden labor market, Ezedi and Kotokori 2024 in the Finland, and Poliziska in Poland. But the thing is, what are our contribution? Our first contribution is this is the first cross-national analysis. This is the broadest international analysis of socio-emotional skills that we consider 21 advanced economies and countries. And the second is that we do heterogeneity exploration. we consider the variation by population segments such as gender, age, migration status, economic factor like economic sector, firm size, and scale match. So what are our difference from the closest paper? In the closest paper, Deming 2017 only consider a specific age range between 25 to 35. That's between this 10 years age range. And Eden et al., Azadi, and the other study, they have just a specific gender because they study related to Sweden and also related to Finland. They cover some skill measurement from the Armed Force Survey that they only consider male gender. There is no female. And also they are considering the skill measurement just only for the year which they enter for taking a test for entering to the military, which is 19 years old or 18 years old. So they cannot consider the scale difference across age. So that's why even they do not consider scale match because they don't think about that. Do you have a scale match or not? Because when they want to take the entry test for the military, so they are going to take this kind of test. So the next thing is digital age relevance. It's most up-to-date evidence in the automation era. All other they study, the most recent data that they are using is up to 2013. But you know the spread of AI in the labor market or automation is started from 2020, especially by introducing some AI platforms such as ChatGPT or many other things that we have now in the labor market. So that's why our study is mostly digital age relevance. And the last things, this is the first study that we consider the wage premium for passions. We have like one study before which they only consider the wage effect on education, the passion effect on education. When you're passionate, are you going to take more education or less education? But there is no specific literature that consider the wage premium for passions that we have. In the methodology, first of all, we are using the data from the PIOC cycle 2, which is published just in December 2024, and it consider 31 countries that surveyed in 2023 in the OECD countries. But unfortunately, for US, Japan, and Korea, we do not have socio-emotional scale in this survey, and the data for Netherlands still is not available due to some legal procedures that they have. For some other countries such as Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Swiss, Finland, and Slovak Republic, some key variable are missing in the public use data, such as wage level or employment level, which is our main dependent variable in this study. So our final sample consists of 21 countries and economies related to OECD and OECD partner countries. So we measure the scale in this study by cognitive skills related to three main domains: numeracy, literacy, and adaptive problem solving, and socio-emotional skill by Big Five inventory or Big Five personality traits plus passion, which is non-Big Five trait. And we are going to make a standardized composite of three main domains of cognitive skills and standardized composite of like that 6 type of socio-emotional skills in this study to make it an index of them. For the sample characteristic, we use a sample of 21 countries, which is the number of full-time employees, more than 53,000. Our study age ranges started from 16 to 65 years old. And the good thing is it's very gender balanced, like 50-50. Although there are some variation across countries, some of them like 47% male and like 52% female. Some of them is the vice versa, but still for the whole sample is very like gender balance. And immigrant share is almost like 19% immigrant we have in this study, and education is around 14 years of schooling. And we use the wage level as a PPP adjusted for 2022 USD. And about the top cognitive performance and low cognitive performance, there are 3 countries which performing at the top: Germany, Belgium, and UK, specifically based on the full-time employees. We do not consider all the people which surveyed. We just only consider full-time employees, which they have consistent wage level. So that's why it's some between the full-time employees, this ranking. And there are bottom performers with Chile, Poland, and Lithuania. So there are some theoretical model. I'm not going to tackle about them. Just I'm going to like explain the basic concept why socio-emotional skills matter in the labor market, because socio-emotional skills is going to reduce the coordination cost in a team-based work environment. When you are working in a team, so socio-emotional skills can help us to coordinate very well our task, our job with our coworkers, with our team members, based on our comparative advantage that we have. So basically, when we are talking about, we consider using like a kind of comparative advantage theory for Ricardo that we have in international trade. So we consider here each individual in the state of a country and socio-emotional scales in the state of like that good or cost that we have here. So basically, if we have higher socio-emotional skills, we can be better in coordination. So this coordination can help us to use a comparative advantage than others that we have. And we will be more specialized on some specific tasks that we have, and we just outsource to other colleagues the other types of tasks that we are not like a kind of specialized to them. So that's why the socio-emotional skills can help us to better coordinate the task between different coworkers that we have in the team, and each of them will be specialized in a specific task that they can do better. So if there's no socio-emotional skills, there's no communication, there's no effective coordination, so we don't know who is better in which type of task. That's why it reduces the coordination cost, and the coordination cost then enhance the team productivity, and finally we will have a good performance within our team. So I'm not going to explain the mathematical formula here because we don't have enough time. But when we are talking about the econometric model, and this econometric model in the baseline estimation, we have cognitive skills, socio-emotional skills, and the interaction term between these two types of skills and some control variable. By the introduction term, which we have coefficients of beta 3, this coefficient shows the complementarity between the two types of skills when they are positively significant. So basically, when the second derivative of this function, either with respect to cognitive skills or SEME skills, which is beta 3, is positive and greater than 0 and significant, so we can say that two types of skills is complementarity. So if you take the first derivative and then the second derivative is a kind of partial derivative or cross-partial derivative of these two types of scale, if it's positive, then we can say there is a complementarity. And there is another idea that when we hire someone, we cannot observe their ability, their skills at the time of hiring process or the time of recruitment. So we need sometimes to observe their true skill level. So that's why what we are going to do, after sometimes the employer, when they observe the true skill level of employees, they are going to reward accordingly. So we can say that maybe tenure can affect. So there could be moderating effect of tenure. So that's why if we want to show the moderating effect of tenure, we can make another interaction term between the tenure and this three main variable that we have in the model to see whether after, like sometimes that we are working in the labor market within an employer, that affects our skill return or not. And then we are going to the next stage, how we try to do the whole analytical process in this study. The first one, we are going to prepare the data because there's like a combination of data that we have. You need to standardize them. You need to make a composite of these types of skills to have an index because they cover a lot of things. If we consider all of them separately in the model, so we will have like a kind of huge noise or measurement error. So that's why we are going to standardize. And the second, we are going to estimate the baseline model, which we control for individual characteristic, to picture the whole effect of a skill, whether cognitive or socio-emotional skills, regardless of whether they form, either in school, at home, or at job. Then we extend our model by adding years of schooling to separate the effect of skills independent of years of schooling. Then we are going to add some mediating effect of occupation industry in the model. And finally, we'll have some robustness check with using alternative control and specification in this model. And we are going to the next stage, some heterogeneity analysis by gender, age group, migration status, and economic factor to see whether there significant differences exist across different subgroup or not. So let's go through the results of this study. The first most important, when we consider this graph, we only add in the regression SEME skills and control variables. So there's no cognitive and interaction term. When you see in this figure, Singapore is the country which shows the highest return to socio-emotional skills, and Israel is the lowest, which is even insignificant. And one of the key findings in this figure, if you see, most of the traditional advanced economies, such as UK, Italy, Canada, Spain, Ireland, or France, they are around the low performers in terms of return to socio-emotional skills. Just only one of those traditionally advanced economy show return to skill higher than average with Germany, just around the average, not so much high. If we see most of the countries which higher wage return to socio-emotional skills are among the new developed countries, such as Singapore, Estonia, Hungary, Chile, Croatia, which they are still in the process of developing. And traditionally advanced economies, they show less value of socio-emotional skills. It maybe depends on the labor market structure or the industry structure of each country, because mostly those traditional advanced economies, their industries also remain traditional. So they have some heavy industry production, which we do not need mostly like socio-emotional skills. And then we are going to talk about the complementarity between the two types of skills. We see on average as a pool sample, there is a significant complementarity exists between two types of skills. So it means giving a specific level of cognitive skills, when the socio-emotional skills increase by 1 unit, which means 1 standard deviation, the value of cognitive skills increased by 2.3% as a pool sample. But it's a cross-country variation. In some countries, we do not have complementarity, and some countries we have complementarity. But on average, we have among the whole sample. When you are talking about the pooled sample, we consider or we control what for the country fixed effect. So to just like get rid of the country effect here. But when we are going to across the countries that you see with red color, red highlight, those countries shows like significant complementarity among the two types of skills. The rest of them either insignificant or close to zero. When we are talking about the estimation, the presence of schooling, because this estimation shows the return to socio-emotional skills and complementarity and return to cognitive skills independent of education. It's like dependent on education, but this one is independent of education. So we just like separate the effect of years of schooling than the effect of another types of skills that we earn from our home, with our parents, or from labor market, or from social lives. But when we control for years of schooling, the thing is, the return to cognitive skills and socio-emotional skills drop largely. So the return to socio-emotional skills and cognitive skills independent of years of schooling is smaller, because a part of that moves to years of schooling. But the complementarity is still almost the same and even increasing from 0.0223 to 0.024. And after adding years of schooling in the model, the complementarity independent of years of schooling is even increasing in some other countries that you see in blue color here. But when we are considering about the mediating effect of occupation and industry, as we see, so sorry for the large table and very small size of the numbers, but overall, we have both occupational sorting and also industry sorting based on skill level that we have. And occupational sorting is larger than industry sorting. It means that, first of all, when we have high skill, this high skill leads to a better occupation, and that better occupation leads to higher wage. So it means the return to skills here is not within occupation, the previous one. This one is not within occupation. This is across occupation. We did not control for occupation. That when we consider within occupation, it's getting lower, but it's still largely significant. And when we consider about the complementarity, also it reduced from 2.3% to 2.1%, but not so large. And even in terms of industry, there's no change in complementarity among the pool sample or across countries, but the return to skills reduced due to industry sorting and also occupational sorting. So the first column shows the occupation sorting, and the second column shows the industry sorting. And when we consider about the robustness to additional control, so we have the good things for chalk data. We have a like very rich variables, very rich covariates. So we can consider different types of related covariates, such as like flexibility. As you saw in the beginning, I told that socio-emotional skills can increase flexibility, and that flexibility can enhance like maybe our return to skills. So that's why if we control for flexibility, even that flexibility increase the complementarity a little bit from 2.3% to 2.4% for the full sample. But here, one of the things that we can consider when we consider about the field of education or the field of study and firm size. So again, the complementarity reduced from like 2.3% to 1.9%. So it means the firm size sorting is larger than occupational and industry sorting. Because we have a kind of phenomena which is called firm size wage premium. It means larger firms provide better wage and also some better facilities for workers, like kindergarten for children, like elementary school for child, such as those kind of, or insurance, pension, those kind of things, like a kind of motivate people with high level of skills to sort themselves into larger firm. So that's why the complementarity shrink here, but it's still significant. So across countries, there are some differences. The other things, let's go to talk about the heterogeneity with different subgroups. The first one is heterogeneity by wage distribution across quantile. If you see both the return to cognitive skills and socio-emotional skills increase to up to 80 percentile. It's like larger than average, but below the 40 percentile is below the average. But in both cases, they are significant. But when they reach in some specific point, like 80 percentile, they reduce again. Why? Because in the top upper distribution of wages, people are allocated here, which they need more specialized skills. As I told in the beginning, so socio-emotional skills increase our comparative advantage, so we are going to specialize in a specific task. So that's why in that specific task, so we need like some specific types of skills rather than the general one of all of them. That's why it reduced. But the complementarity, if you see, is reducing from the beginning to the end. And when the return to cognitive skills and socio-emotional skills reduce in the 80 percentile, we see the complementarity shrink very largely. And even in the 90 percentile, it becomes insignificant. So it means complementarity mostly matter for the lower wage earner because they need to have both of them in order to a kind of compensate one of them to have more earning. But still, it's very interesting that up to one time they reduce again because of like a specialization that we have in the job market. So when we consider about the heterogeneity based on demographic factors such as age group, gender, and migration status, still we have differences. For the age group, is very interesting. The return to cognitive skills first increase up to the prime age level, then again decrease. But the thing is, the return to socio-emotional skills consistently increase over age. So it means the socio-emotional skills is much more important for older people rather than for younger people. Because like mostly older people, they are more likely to work in upper management level. Because for the young people, when they just enter to the labor market, it's very hard to work in the upper management level. But for the people which they are working in the upper management level, mostly they are somehow older adult people. So they mostly work on a coordination stage, leadership, management. So they need to mostly communicate with others, like make team, coordinate teams. So that's why return for them is high, and also complementarity for them is high. They need both of them because they are working in a kind of management stage. But by gender, the return to cognitive skills somehow similar. The return to some semi skills is high for male, and the complementarity is a bit higher for male, but not the statistically significant difference. When it comes to for migration, the return to semi skills is lower for migrant people, it's statistically lower. And the complementarity is high for the native people. And the thing is, mostly the socio-emotional skills of migrant people will be undervalued. So due to like culture problem, culture differences, language differences, even still when they consider which they have like high socio-emotional skills, but it still is undervalued. Another problem may be due to the self-report nature of this data. So when they ask, okay, how extroverted you are, they may say high. But when it comes to existing labor market, because there is language barrier, so they may not use that types of skills. So either they will be least valued, or they themselves cannot like a kind of use that types of skills in the labor market. Based on the economic factor, we have sector difference. Mostly the return to cognitive skills, socio-emotional skills, and complementarity is higher for private sector and lower for public sector. And also according to the firm size, as you see here, the socio-emotional skills is high for the small and medium firm sizes, but the return to cognitive skills is higher for the large firm sizes. And the complementarity is high for the low firm sizes or for the small and medium sizes because they mostly work in a. Yeah, it's almost done. Yeah. So this is the disaggregated skills, and disaggregated skills, one of the things I want to say that agreeableness is among the skills that doesn't have an economic value. But extroversion is among the types of socio-emotional skill which has very high economic value, and passion as well, which is a kind of non-big five personality traits. And for the conclusions, so as you see, although the result, there are substantial differences in return to SIMI skills across countries, and SIMI skills enhance the value of cognitive skills. This aggregated finding shows that extroversion and passions are among the leading types of SIMI skills, and agreeableness does not create an economic value. There are differences across demographic and economic factors, and there are some policy implications based on the education reform, workplace training, economic planning, and research agenda to consider mostly causality in the future, because by this data it's hard to consider causality, but for causality we need mostly like experimental data rather than survey data in a specific part of time. Thank you.